This is Greg Lawson, the paranormal detective. You're listening to Dead Creepy Podcast.
And welcome back to part 2 of Dead Creepy Podcast, the SAGE Paracon 2017 special guest episode. So, we have heard in part 1 from John Zaffis, Brian J. Cano, and Claire Hinks. Part 2, we're going to bring to you some more of our fantastic guest interviews and chat a little bit about the weekend. There were plenty of people from the US just because Paracon was held in Warwick Castle in the UK. It didn't stop a few Americans coming over from across the pond to join us. We had a plane full, I think, didn't we?
Absolutely, yeah. They seemed to all know each other, so I think they enjoyed travelling together. And
they did, and some of them had faced some hurdles, such as, that little hurricane that blew over Florida and certain things. So I think there were one or two that couldn't make it. So without that, there would have been even more of you. So we were honoured to meet you all, and we hope that you enjoyed coming over to the UK. It looked like you were enjoying yourself.
Oh, absolutely.
I just think it's fantastic. I've never been to a Paracon before with so many people from other places as well, not just the US. So on the Saturday, we had a full day. After our investigation, we got about 3 or 4 hours sleep, and then...
Oh my God, yeah.
We were so tired, and we got up.
Oh, we did have a pot noodle, didn't we, when we got back to our cabin after the...
Ah, we did.
After the ghost hunt.
I'm so glad Daryl packed those pot noodles for us.
Yeah, thanks, Daryl, for the pot noodles. They came in very useful.
They did, because that was our snack, our after investigation snack. We were sat up in bed at 3:30 in the morning eating pot noodles.
We were.
We woke up 4 hours later and it was straight back over and into another fantastic day. And then that evening we had a party, which was a supernatural themed party.
We did,
So most people were in cosplay. I dressed up as Abaddon or Abaddon. Anyway, I was her. And she has red hair, so I had a red wig, black contact lenses. Oh, yeah, my lipstick. Now, that was a bit of a talking point, wasn't it?
It was, yes. The amount of people that came up to you to let you know politely that your lipstick was smeared.
Yeah, but you see, I had been on Pinterest, so I'm pretty sure I was right. That Abaddon's lipstick is meant to be smeared across her face, because after all, she's had her head cut off and sewn back on again. So your lipstick's not going to stay in place after something like that, is it?
Well, you're not going to look your best, are you?
No, you're not. So it was great fun dressing up as Abaddon, and I had my photo taken with 3 other girls dressed the same. We all had the same T-shirt on, the leather jacket, and if I say so myself, we looked amazing. We had our photo done with Baby the car, and those photographs are all up online for people to buy if they want to. And you dressed up as
Sam Winchester.
Yeah, I think there were a couple of Sams.
Yeah, apparently he's in the show that I've never seen, but Pinterest tells me how to dress, so I went with it.
And Brian J. Cano, he went as Sam Winchester
he was
too.
Sam as well, yes. Yeah, you
he was.
The difference. We were like twins.
So we had a great night, and the best thing about that party was the karaoke. Jeff Belanger, he was first up.
He couldn't wait to get up there.
He couldn't wait, could he? He was great. He got up and sang. We've got the video on our Facebook page, so pop over to Facebook and put in Dead Creepy Podcast if you want to see Jeff Belanger on the karaoke. John Zaffis did a bit of dancing. He's quite a groovy guy.
Yeah.
And he was getting on down to the funky rhythm with everybody, and they sang Ghostbusters, didn't they?
They did.
Mm-hmm. All the guest speakers was sort of dancing around, and when it was Who You Gonna Call, it was John Zaffis. So I haven't managed to get a hold of a copy of that video yet.
That must be on Facebook somewhere.
Oh, it's bound to be. So if I get hold of that, trust me, That will be on a Dead Creepy podcast page too.
Yeah. Both our phone batteries died that night, so we couldn't film an awful lot, could we?
I know, and do you know what's so gutting? Jeff Belanger came up to us at midnight and said, "Let's record a podcast right now."
I know.
And we both looked at each other and went, "Oh no! Oh no! How can this happen to us? Our phones have both died and we had no charger, and it would have been a half-hour trek in the rain to get our chargers from our cabin." So we are so gutted about that, because that would have been amazing. But actually, do you know what? Maybe it's for the best. He might not have thanked us for putting that one out.
You never know.
He wasn't drunk, I have to say.
No.
He only had a couple of beers, but even so, everything happens for a reason. But next year we will remember, and we'll have our chargers with us at all times.
We will. We'll have backup phones and everything. Power packs, juice packs.
Yeah.
In fact, we won't be able to move because we'll be weighted down with equipment.
We will. And I saw there is a video uploaded on Sage Paracon site today of MJ Dixon singing on the karaoke now.
Yes.
Well, MJ, hats off, because I know how poorly you were this weekend. She was struggling with a sore throat and a cold. And in fact, a big thank you to MJ for organising the weekend, because there were a fair few challenges thrown her way, and she managed to. Yeah, we won't talk about those challenges. It was all sort of administration challenges. It was nothing to do with any of the guests, but you know what?
She rose above.
She rose above it, and she got on with it. So let's get on with the first interview of part 2. And of course, we've just been talking about the man himself. Let's hear Jeff Belanger's chat with us.
Hello.
Hi. Who are you again?
I'm
Say your name.
Jim Carrey.
I thought I recognised you.
Jeff Belanger.
Jeff, welcome to Dead Creepy Podcast. It's a pleasure.
Thank you for having me. Thanks for being here this weekend.
It's fantastic to meet you. And what are you making of the weekend so far?
It's great. I was here last year, so I was fortunate to return, and we did the investigation of Warwick Castle last night, which is always amazing. I love being in old buildings and getting to go into dungeons and things like that after hours. It's such a treat, because during the people, I get asked a lot, how come people only ghost hunt at night? Are there no ghosts during the day? I'm sure there's plenty of ghosts during the day, but there's so many people, so much hustle and bustle, you can't possibly hone in on it. And so to get when it's quiet and all the tourists are gone and we're in there, it was really a great experience.
And did you have any experiences last night here?
So we had this weird thing. Someone had a thermal camera, which you may see on some of the shows, that detects heat signatures. And on the floor there was this spot, just like if someone had just been sitting there and their bum had warmed it up. And so we're looking at it and we're going, it's not fading. And it's a stone floor. And so we had someone else sit down a few feet away and sat for 2-3 minutes, and then they got up, and as you would expect, you saw the heat signature of their bum, and after about 3 or 4 minutes that went away, but this other one didn't. It just stayed there for 20 minutes. We're in a semicircle looking at this spot on the floor going, why is it there? And it's one of those cases where your equipment is showing you something and you're trying so hard to debunk it and figure it out, and at the end of the day we couldn't. And I'm not ready to tell you that's a ghost, a demon, or anything else, but I can say we couldn't figure it out. And that in itself is kind of fun, because usually you can. So that was a kind of a neat moment last night. But otherwise, no boogeymen jumped on me or anything like that, but I remain hopeful. Yeah, the weekend's still young.
The weekend is still young,
yes. Could happen, yeah.
That's right. So what can the Sage tribe expect from you this weekend during your tour?
A lot of awkward jokes, really uncomfortable moments. So I've been doing this for 20 years now. Next month is my 20th anniversary. I started writing about the paranormal, first for newspapers. In October of 1997 was my first published article on the paranormal. And so it's turned into a career that I think one could never plan, but But there's that. So I'm going to talk about some of my favorite haunts. I write the show Ghost Adventures on the Travel. Well, over here, I don't know what channel it's on. I'm sorry. But Travel Channel in the U.S. But I forget who airs it over here. But
is it really?
Yes, really, yeah. So I've worked on 200 episodes of that show now, which we're in our 14th season. It's just been an amazing ride, and that's still going. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about some of my favorite locations from the show, and then a project on witches I've been working on witches and witchcraft, and mainly witch trials, because for some crazy reason it feels really relevant again today in 2017 to be talking about witch trials. I don't know why. It's just, I feel compelled to share some stories and be like, I'll be damned if history doesn't feel like it's repeating.
Yes.
So
Well, that's something to really look forward to. I can't wait to hear that.
yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. And also, I'm talking about my own spiritual growth. I've had quite a spiritual year. I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro this year, back in March, and that was just an incredible, life-changing, life-altering experience to be up that high. And took 6 days to get to the top, and just really like a life-changing moment.
So you would say that from the beginning of your career to now, you've changed a lot of your views and opinions and the way you look at everything spiritually?
Yeah, for sure. You know, when I started, I think, well, I can figure this ghost stuff out. And I realized what's happening in paranormal research is that we're all just ripping off Harry Price, right? From 100 years ago.
Yeah.
100 years ago, a century. We haven't changed a bit as far as like ghost hunting. We're still, and by the way, in America, everyone's going, "Who's Harry Price?" Right? Yeah. But I'm like, he's the one you're ripping off. You don't even know. You're ripping off the TV show you saw, which is ripping off Harry Price. And so he wrote Confessions of a Ghost Hunter. Was it 1921 or something like that? But 100 years ago. And his idea was like, looking for electromagnetic energy, because electricity was still kind of a new thing going on, and mediumship was a huge deal. And people were saying like, yes, this magic power that you can flip a switch and a light comes on is truly witchcraft magic. As the same thing, that's the same kind of thing that's going on with psychics and intuition and ghosts and so on. So he's using his version of electromagnetic meters, and I'm sure he would have had thermal cameras if they were around then. But doing all the same ideas. And I'm just like, man, so how do we put this stuff in a box and figure it out? And back then I started as a journalist, a newspaper reporter. So I was just cataloging hundreds of experiences. People would email my website and would put them up, and people would tell me their stories. And I've heard thousands upon thousands at this point. And it's so easy to want to put them all in a box. Oh, this is a residual haunting. This is just like a movie that plays over and over. This is intelligent. It's grandma saying goodbye after she died. And this is that. And I think over time I've come to realize there are as many definitions for ghosts as there are ghost experiences. And my ghost experience is different than yours. And it's so individual. And as much as some people try to apply science, and I applaud that. I applaud trying to be objective and skeptical and thorough. You should. I'm curious about that stuff too. But at the end of the day, you can't remove spiritual, and we just can't put spiritual in a jar and measure it and weigh it or anything like that. So for me, it's become, if you left me alone in this castle tonight, all by my onesie, I wouldn't have any gear. I would have a paper and a pen. I would probably bring a camera and a recorder just because I'd want to document anything I might experience. But that's anything I might experience, not something that may or may not be there. And yes. I would walk around and I would stop when I felt strange or weird, and I would look closer if the hairs on the back of my neck stood up, and if they weren't standing up, I'd just keep walking. And that's how I would do it, because to me, I'm experiencing a legend. I'm experiencing a story and walking through history, and that's why I do this stuff, to connect with something that's long ago and mingle with it. To me, that's the magic of it. And that maybe, just maybe, I might leave there different. Because I've only had a few experiences in 20 years, just a tiny handful, where I can say, if that's not a ghost, I don't know what that is. And every one of them has changed me in some way for the better. So I welcome the next one, wherever and whenever it may come.
So it's a very personal thing for you. It's not about evidence on a scientific basis.
No. I can't,
experience.
And I can't prove this to. I gave up long ago trying to convince anyone of anything. Although I admit last night there was someone she claimed she was a skeptic, and she said, "Oh, I don't even think there's any kind of afterlife." And I'm like, "Actually, I think I can prove that to you in like under 5 seconds." And I said, "Have you ever lost a grandparent?" Let's say, and she was probably in her 30s. So she's like, "Well, yeah, I've lost grandparents." I'm like, "Do you have any memories of them? Anything they taught you? Any memories of them at all?" And she's like, "Well, sure." I'm like, and there you go. There's an afterlife.
Exactly.
There's you are carrying something of them with you right now, and they go on, and you are going to pass on experiences to your friends, family, children, grandchildren one day that have direct roots to what your grandparents taught you or showed you. And guess what? they have ties back from them, and so on. And so if nothing else, there is some piece of us continues and carries on and mingles with others, and I think these stories really connect us to each other and to our past and to our own future and so on, and that's what I get out of it. I get out, like, I think about like the shirt on your back right now. How many people do you think were involved in getting that shirt on your back today?
Wow, yeah, that's true.
I would guess 10, 20,000 people, minimum. Someone tilled the soil, that grew the cotton, someone picked the cotton, someone built the machine, designed the machine that, separated the cotton and things like that. Someone made the dye, someone designed it, someone put it on a truck, someone packaged it, someone put it on a store, someone put it on a shelf, someone washed it for you, like someone built the washing machine, that someone designed that washing machine. Tens, maybe 1 million people got that shirt on your back. 1 million people. That's freaking amazing.
So every single thing that we see around us is reality that's been created by somebody else. So everything we see around us is
a reality being created by us.
Yes, we've created our own reality.
Of course we do, and we do that every single day in our own relationships. If you think about, if you work in an office and you're like, oh, that bitch hates me, and you've never spoken to her, and now she's starting to look at you like, it's your problem, right? You've just created this reality where you're just like, yeah, and now she's going, well, I don't like her. Why? Because you just get this vibe, and you've made that happen. You can make the opposite happen too, which is encouraging. You can make good things happen. You can look for the good and make the good, and so on. And I think that's one of the things that I've learned all that just from being in haunted, creepy buildings at midnight, looking for ghosts.
Fantastic. It's amazing what a bit of ghost hunting can do for you, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's probably where your interest in folklore comes from.
Yeah, huge.
Because folklore, I would say paranormal is quite a modern term. So going back hundreds and hundreds of years, the stories that we get, that you talk about in you've got a podcast called New England Legends.
Yeah.
So you've got folklore. I imagine you're talking about
folklore,
legends and folklore that have existed from hundreds of years ago. Those stories still exist today, and that amazes us, doesn't it? We love our Welsh folklore. So I'm really interested in listening to your stories on your podcast, because a lot of our stories are the same.
Yeah,
and we didn't have the internet.
Yeah.
So why is that?
The podcast is new. I've only done 5 episodes, but we do it every week. They're really short, about 6-7 minutes. And that's it. Just tell a story. We're done. We don't explore it. We just tell it, explore it. What does it mean today? And off we go. And so we just recently did one called The White Lady of Easton. And it's Easton, Connecticut. There's a cemetery called Union Cemetery. And when I was a child, I grew up 2 towns away. And the White Lady, she's been seen in and around the cemetery. She's been seen along the road next to the cemetery. And any one of your UK listeners right now is going, we have a white lady, we have a gray lady, we have a green lady. And I'm like, yes, you do. So do we. And it goes back to a time where women were buried in their wedding dresses. When you start asking questions like, well, who was she? We don't know. How did she die? Was she murdered? Did she die in childbirth? Why? Who? What? And asking these questions allows us to try to explore that. So to me, folklore, any ghost hunting television show you've ever seen, ever, 100% of them are very first and foremost chasing a story. The reason we're at Warwick Castle, right, is because there's a story here. There's a reason we're not going to like some brand new cookie cutter hotel that was just popped up on the side of a highway with let's look for ghosts here. Why? I don't know. Why not?
Yes.
Because it's 6 months old. It's all cookie cutter materials, and there's no story. We're chasing stories always. Yeah.
We'll put the links to your podcast
on
our page, and we'll put the links to all your books.
Thank you.
On our page.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure to talk to you, and we'll catch up with you again over the weekend if that's all right.
Of course, be glad to. I love talking about this stuff, and I think the discussion is the most important thing. Because you can't convince anyone of anything, but you can talk about it. And the thing about folklore and these stories is they're changing and evolving at all times. So, everyone that's here this weekend, you're now a part forever, a part of the story of Warwick Castle. You are written into the book now, forever and ever, because you've been there. You've stood here, you've walked through the grounds and through the castle, and you keep that forever. And Warwick Castle keeps you forever. It's permanent. And that's really something special, you know? Something really, really special.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh,
They can't see us,
lovely.
right? What we just did?
No.
Oh, good, yeah.
They can't see you.
Yeah, sometimes Americans walk by and you know them from long ago and you have to give them a little salute.
Jeff, it's been fantastic to talk to
Yeah,
you.
thanks. It was fun.
We look forward to hearing your talk.
Yes.
Sounds great.
Thank you ever so much.
All right, cheers.
I hope you listen to Dead Creepy.
I never miss it.
I
I like that
thought
one you did on that story. Was really cool. Remember the thing where it was like
Yeah.
really kind of weird, and then
What's
but then
into Daryl Whitebottom,
awesome,
isn't he?
amazing.
Yeah, he's our resident skeptic.
He is, yeah.
Resident skeptics. I welcome skeptics. I do, because anything I look at it as like a weird puzzle. You know, we should look at it from every angle. Have the religious person look at it. Have the skeptic look at it. Have the believer, the non-believer, everyone in between. Because maybe collectively we might figure it out. And at the end of the day, I think the only person who stands a chance of figuring it out is you, the individual. And you reach your conclusion, and that's okay. And so one of the things that happens at these, someone has a ghost experience and they want to convince you so badly, like, please believe that I had this happen. And if you do or don't, I think they feel better just for sharing it. But no, skeptics are good.
Yes, we agree.
All right.
We concur. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we're going to buy you a book, by the way.
Well, you could buy all of them.
Can we? I don't know if I can afford
We're not
all of
recording.
them.
So there you have it. That was Jeff. What a great guy.
Oh, he was so lovely.
And during that interview, you might not be able to tell, but he was pulling faces and doing some rude gestures at some people that walked past us during the interview. And in fact, during a couple of our interviews with other guests, Jeff was pulling faces at them from behind us.
Yeah, he was in the background pulling faces. He's such a
Trying to-
joker. He's a real lot of fun. He's a really good guy.
You could bump into him in the street and say hi, and he'd remember you and genuinely be interested in how you were. So yeah, that was it. So Nikki Folsom, we'll listen to her interview next and see if you can guess at which point during that interview Jeff Belanger is pulling faces at Nikki, trying to put her off. Nikki Folsom, here she comes.
Hello, Nikki, and welcome to Dead Creepy Podcast.
Hello, thank you.
And welcome to Warwick Castle as well.
Yes, it's beautiful here.
Isn't it? Have you been here before?
I was here in 2010, but I still got lost walking here from the village.
It's a huge castle, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And it's impossible to get how big it is until you're actually here.
Yes.
The photographs don't do it justice.
You're awestruck when you walk in. You look up and it's massive.
It is. We're looking forward to your talk this weekend.
I'm very excited to talk to everyone. I'm just going to talk about me and the experiences at the theater, and kind of do. The book is laid out like a tour of the building, so I'm kind of doing my talk the same way. Just the hot spots, and then we'll go from there.
Fantastic. Well, we've asked our listeners this morning on Facebook if they have any questions, and we have a question for you. Okay. So, this one is from Kathy Denver.
And she says, "Hi Nikki, is there one topic you would not cover? If so, what is it, and why would you not research and write on it?"
Demons frighten me, so I probably would not like to delve too far into that. So I try to keep as much distance from that as possible. I think, unfortunately, Hollywood today has turned everything into a demon.
Yeah.
And it's made people so fearful of things that you shouldn't be afraid of. So I prefer to stay on topics where they're light. I mean, there's still things that are terrifying, but that doesn't make it a demon. It just makes it terrifying, unnerving.
Yeah.
But demons are where I would draw the line. I don't want to write about that.
Yeah.
Have you ever come across something that you thought was a demon in your investigations?
I have, and it's actually at the Harlequin. There's a thing we call the creature, and we still don't know what it is, but MJ enlightened me on something when I was talking to her. It growls at people. It's, when you look at it, it's like a tan or a gray color. It almost looks part alien and part animal.
Right.
And I was telling MJ about it because it terrified me. I really did think it was a demon, and I wanted nothing to do with it. And MJ said, the way that you're describing it, it sounds like an elemental. And I said, oh. And she said, it's never walked the earth as a human, so it doesn't know how to interact with you. Well, that explains the growling and the watching. It's because it hovers above in the light booth and watches down on the people in the light booth. It watches people in the grid, which is above the dining room area of the house. And now that I know, it may just be something that doesn't know how to communicate. It just growls to get our attention. I have had a change of heart with it. So now I look at it differently, and now I want to talk to it. I'm still a little apprehensive, but I want to talk to it.
It's fascinating. Just tell us briefly about your book, The Haunted Harlequin.
Okay, so The Haunted Harlequin is experiences that a group of us have had since 1975. The Harlequin was put in place in 1975, and a lady, Florence and Bruce, had run the theater. And what ended up happening is they had it from 1975 to 2009, and they were capturing experiences all through those years. We started coming in there. I started in 2009 there. I was volunteering, and we started getting experiences. We had no idea that we were capturing the same thing, so I decided to put all these experiences in a book, and I laid it out, like I said, by the rooms, because I could go on. I could have 15 books about the Harlequin, because things still happen. They still happen every day. It's crazy. So there's shadow people. There's a little girl that waves to people that she's followed me home, which I don't know if I'm going to talk about that. Yeah, we've actually gotten to the point at the theater where we have to say every night before we leave, you need to stay here. You have a good night. You stay here. We'll see you tomorrow. We'll see you when we're back. And they don't come home with us, but they followed me home. They followed Robert and Sean home. Sean was working on something one day, and he had 3 turquoise vases sitting on the shelf, and as he turned his back, they flew across the room and smashed against the wall. And he had not said, stay at the theater. And the little girl followed me home one night because we used to have a children's group there, and the kids' energy, the energy of children is just different. It's fun and exciting. And I had worked with all these kids, and I went home, and I was super happy, and I didn't tell anything to stay at the theater. And it was between 3 and 3:30 in the morning, I woke up to this little girl going, ee! Like super excited scream. And I immediately sat up. I wasn't afraid. All I said was, you have to stay at the theater. You can't come home with me. That's where you stay. And from that moment on, she never followed me home. So there's that.
Well, I can't wait to hear your talk.
Oh, thank you.
And I hope you come back to SAGE Paracon again next year.
Yes, I hope to. Yes.
Yeah. That would be fantastic. So if anybody listening wants to buy your book, we're going to put the links to all of that on our website, our Facebook page, and our podcast page. So that would be fantastic. So thank you for talking to us.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. It really is. Thank you very much, Nikki.
Of course.
Oh, what a lovely lady. I really, really liked her. She's so sweet.
She was lovely. She really was. And Nikki's chat was all about her book. She's an author. She's a paranormal investigator, and she's written a book about the Haunted Harlequin, which is a theatre.
Yes.
That
she volunteers at this theatre, and so she's built up like a relationship with the spirits there. And yeah, so it's a very personal story, very personal book that she's written.
Right, so we'll put the links up for Nikki's book, The Haunted Harlequin, and it's well worth a read. Okay, so up next is the amazing Mr. Greg Lawson. Now,
yay!
We love Greg! We love Greg!
The paranormal detective.
Now, Greg's been on our show before, and he's definitely going to be on our show again. He's one of our favourite guests ever.
Absolutely.
And he's just such a nice man, and he has signed our book, The Paranormal Detective, and we were lucky enough to do some investigating with Greg as well. In fact, we did the bear tower with Greg, didn't we?
We did, yeah.
Horrible place. They used to chain a bear up and do bear baiting in the old days, and
yes,
the atmosphere in there, there's still, you can see where the chains are, and the big dungeon where they would keep the bear. And yeah, so we did that with Greg Lawson, and this is what he had to say to us.
Can I have coffee while we're talking?
Absolutely.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's all very chilled and relaxed.
I wonder if it's got anything in there.
I think we might grab a coffee.
Should I slurp when I do it?
Yes,
Definitely.
Okay.
All the sound effects that you can add would be
That
great.
is
It saves
good.
us adding a minute afterwards.
Yeah, it's Sunday morning after a long party, so I'm a little disconnected.
That's
Anyway.
fine. Well, do you know what? We asked our listeners, we have many, if they had any questions that they'd like us to ask you whilst,
Really?
yeah, absolutely, whilst we've got you. And we have a question, don't we, Linzi?
Right, this question is from Kathy Denver.
I know her.
Right, she says, when are we going to get a book from you detailing the experiences of other emergency services in the supernatural? Oh, sorry. She's put hint.
Wow. So, oddly enough, last weekend I was in Houston. If you're not keeping up with the news in the U.S., so Houston got hit real hard with a hurricane.
Yes.
So it will probably be one of the most expensive recovery efforts ever. The amount of infrastructure and everything that was damaged down there. And they had the New Paradigms Holistic Conference last weekend, and they didn't cancel it. They went ahead and had it forward. So I met a gentleman there, and I'm going to keep, just because I'm not sure what we're going to do yet. But he works in emergency services also, and he approached me about doing a project. So Kathy Denver, it's coming.
Fantastic.
I think it'll be very interesting the way that we're gonna do it, because it's not going to be highlighted on us. It will be a little bit on some of the stuff.
I think there's going to be there's a lot of stories with emergency services that they can't explain. You read them on Reddit. I don't know if you ever go on.
Yeah.
You know, obviously a lot of them you don't know if they're fictional facts, but it's scary.
You know, people ask me about different sites that talk about those things, or if I know a certain person that writes books and stuff. And if I was doing my due diligence, I probably should. And if I wasn't as lazy as I am, I compartmentalize my time a lot. And also I think that I should just have information that I get and not let some of these other things influence me, so I don't have expectations. Because I firmly believe that, people say, I'll see it when I believe it.
Yeah.
And you can argue back and forth, is seeing believing or is believing seeing? So if you're one of those ones that subscribe to, I'll believe it when I see it, that's where I try to be.
Yeah.
Because I really think a lot of times it's the other way. We see what we want to see. An example is, for me, a very strong example is when I buy a car. I get this unique car, and I think it's really cool. And I get in it, and I start driving it, and they're everywhere.
All of a sudden, you see them everywhere.
I got this green Jeep. I hadn't seen this color of Jeep. I get it. I'm driving around. There's a green Jeep goes by me. Green Jeep goes by me. Yes, and I should know that. It's not pareidolia. It's
I've heard it in the last week or so. This exact same scenario. We've been looking at buying a Jeep, and all of a sudden they're everywhere.
It's a recognition bias. It's a type of bias that you automatically key into. But
That's right. I think there was an example given that if you walk into a room, a crowded room with lots of voices going on, if somebody says your name over there, you will pick it up. So there's some human recognition to certain, we're predisposed to. And so when you bring it to the front of your mind, you're subconscious and conscious. That's what it is, isn't it? It's the difference between the two.
Yeah, and a lot of people aren't real clear on what is subconscious and what's conscious. Another good example is when I say, you remember the guy named, the guy that, he's got red hair and he worked at the car wash. Well, anyway, and then they go on with their story. Yeah. And 15 minutes later, you've been talking and he says, John Smith.
Yeah.
Guess what? In the background, your computer, that subconscious, was running that whole time, asking that question, trying to sort through things, and it finally recognized it and brings it up. That is a great example of when your subconscious, is really manifests itself. Because a lot of times, the rest of the time, it's really random. But when you do that, that is a really good example of how that works.
So when we're investigating the paranormal, that we need to keep that in mind. So our subconscious possibly is picking things up.
I think so, yeah.
We're not looking
Yeah. And when you're asking yourself questions and you can't find the answer, when you throw it in there, you're throwing it into the hopper.
Yes.
And it's back there twirling around, trying to figure out, patterns and things like that in your mind on what you're doing.
And when we investigated with you on Friday night here at Warwick Castle, we were in your team and we went into that bear tower, and that was interesting how you approached that whole thing. We didn't all just we all went in there to start with, and then we left two people in there on their own, and then you told us all to sort of turn the gadgets off and try and slowly introduce, rather than go in gung-ho and switch everything on. So
Right.
your approach, is that what is in your book, Detecting the Paranormal?
Yeah.
That kind of-
So I think there's we don't know how to approach it, right? Can we agree that we don't know how to approach it? So it seems to me, if I'm going to work from a scientific side of it, and I do use pseudoscience. Now, all the people that call themselves skeptics that are actually cynics, they're not skeptics. I'm a skeptic. The cynics will say, any kind of parapsychology or pseudoscience is fake. But pseudoscience is pseudoscience until it becomes science. So, that's sort of an example, or the definition of it. I use inductive reasoning on a lot of things. So when I have a starting point of someone had an experience and saw for example, saw a bear, and it was a ghost bear. I don't know whether they exist or not, but let's say they saw this bear. Well, I go and look at the area, and I go, oh, they actually had a bear pit here, and they fought bear with dogs here, and probably through human beings to fight them or to feed them, one of the two. They fed the bear humans, so that's probably what they would do with their prisoners. It makes sense.
It does.
So I do inductive reasoning by inducing my thesis or my thought process of, because there was a bear pit, there would be bear fighting. Because there's bear fighting, there's tragedy. Most likely they threw humans in there, and so therefore the reason we saw this bear here is because he experienced, this terrible thing. Or if we would have started off with the human that is looking scared and trying to figure out where he's going, looks lost, and is near a bear pit, well, maybe that's one of the guys that they threw in the bear pit. I can use, and that is kind of, and I love when so many people use physics on this, and they use the idea of energy. It can't be created, it can't be destroyed. Well, that's sort of, that's not necessarily true. It is true, but when you start introducing the laws of thermodynamics into paranormal, that's really pseudoscience. You're really stretching it a lot, but it's a theory.
What about, I have an example of a location that has got this notorious history. It's the Skirrid Inn in South Wales. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
I've heard it from you.
Probably have, because it's 10 minutes down the road, and we've investigated there many times, and it has, there's lots of, if you Google Skirrid Inn, you will get all this history that comes up from various websites. Most of them are paranormal websites because it's got this reputation. It's said that Judge John Jeffreys was there, he held court there, and 182 felons were hanged there in the inn. It's got all this history, okay? Most of it's not true, or it's actually never been documented ever. But this place is booked out for 2 years in advance by paranormal teams. But if you go to the local historical society and say, "Oh, I'm here to investigate the Skirrid Inn," they just tut and look at it and they roll their eyes and they think, "Oh, not another one." There's nothing, and in fact, they didn't even hang the Welsh. Welsh didn't hang people. They had other forms of torture that were more desirable. And Judge John Jeffreys didn't hold court there, and apparently they wouldn't have even hung people inside an inn. It would have all been done publicly anyway. Even if we were in England and they did, it would have been done outside, because of what happens when you hang somebody. The mess that's made, you wouldn't want that on the floor of your inn. So these teams that are going in all the time, they'll upload all their evidence, and they get the Ouija boards, they get EVPs that collaborates all this stuff, and they go, "We contacted, we got Judge Jeffreys through on the Ouija board. We got EVPs, and it was somebody saying they were hanged here for stealing sheep in the 1100s. The pub wasn't even built in the 1100s. Possible there was an inn on that site. We don't have any records for it. So how does that evidence that they're getting come through? Do you think it's something that we have created for ourselves?
So it could be. The reason I say that is because everything that we experience is actual constructs in our brain. So I'm not experiencing you guys right now through a visual process. Now, people get confused. They're like, "Well, what?" Like, you see us in front of each other and we're talking. My brain is creating that experience. My eyes are not the windows to my soul. My eyes don't bring light in and shine it on the back of my brain like a movie theater. And I don't experience it like that. My eyes just pick up I'm picking up radiation in the form of the visual spectrum, and it's coming back and it's touching some nerves on the back of my eyes. That is sending those wavelengths in whatever it interprets to the back of my brain. 1/3 of the back of my brain then reconstructs what it thinks it sees. So I think this is a table. I think that is coffee. I don't know whether that's true or not. If you watch some of the guys, Donald Hoffman, go to TED Talks and push Donald Hoffman and watch some of his stuff, and it'll blow the back of your head off. These guys, this is a physicist that studies consciousness. Well, that's a hell of a crossover right there, right? So, is what we're experiencing what we're really experiencing? My brain tells me that this little cup has sugar packets in it. They're pink, white, and red. The cup is kind of a copper color. The sound I set down, I think, is the true sound that it makes. None of that may be true. And I'm not saying this is the Matrix kind of thing that we're all plugged in and all we are is providing energy for some aliens or something. I'm just saying that this might not be what it actually is. You experience that red door as that color. You agree on what the color is. You agree on what the color is. You could be seeing what I see as green, and I'm seeing it as red.
Yeah, that's true.
But we're all agreeing that it's red. It gets very confusing, and I don't want to kill the show on talking about consciousness, because it gets to the point where I'll read about it or I'll watch some programs about it, and my brain will physically hurt. And people are like, that's another funny thing. People say, "Oh my God, this is making my brain hurt," because something is really hard to understand. When you run, do your legs get tired? Your brain does the same thing, and it's good when you study and you get to that point to where it's really difficult. It's because you're exercising your brain and you're doing that, and that's a really good thing to do. So anyway, I don't know. I'll go back to, I'll see it when I believe it.
Yeah.
Instead of, I'll believe it when I see it. I'm not sure which is the true statement, because I think the Mandela effect, are you familiar with that?
Yeah.
Okay. So could we be creating our own reality?
Yeah.
Could we sit there and say, start believing something and then start actually seeing these constructs, because your brain is made to do that.
Yeah.
So I think it's great that you guys study someplace close to your home, because like for me, I'm from Texas. I travel to Europe and I spend 2 hours in a location, and then I go to another location. I go to another location. I'm getting this snapshot. It's kind of like going to the ocean and taking the cup, scooping up some water and going, see, there's no whales in the ocean.
Yeah.
I got this little 16-ounce cup of water, and I'm making my assumption off of that. So I think it's so important that all paranormal investigators pick one spot that is easy, almost within walking distance of your house, and go spend time there and spend as much time as you can and do what you guys are doing as far as do the real research. I have a stack this high, a foot high, of information on Roswell at the end of my bed. And I get it, and I sit there and read it. And one of these days, I'm going to write a book, and I already have the title for it. I know what I'm going to do. I know how it's going to be done. But it's so hard about Roswell because, in my opinion, everything has been done. What are you going to write about Roswell? And if those of you who are listening, or those people that aren't listening, yeah. What Roswell is, it was the thought of a spacecraft that crashed, and this thing turned into a cold case because the military said that a flying saucer crashed, and then the next day in the paper they said it didn't, it was a weather balloon, and then the story went away. It went away for 30 years, and a guy named Stanton Freeman came back in and started asking questions about it, and we have the Roswell syndrome. Everybody came out of the woodwork, knew everything, all this stuff about it. So I think when we're doing paranormal investigations, it's really important that we become this expert at least one or two places real close to our house, so that on Saturday, when you're waiting for somebody to come over and they're going to be there in an hour and a half, you can actually go over there for 30 minutes and just check something out and then go back home, and it won't interrupt your whole day. You don't have to pack everything up and travel for 6 hours to go do something. And I think that's incredibly important that people do that. We can become this expert at this thing. Where I live, I would have never known about this if it hadn't been for paranormal stuff. Where I live, it's in Georgetown, Texas, and I live next to San Gabriel Park. San Gabriel Park's real pretty. It's got a little river going through it, and people go and have picnics and have fun, right? Yeah. San Gabriel Park was a Tonkawa campsite. The Tonkawas were an Indian, American Indians that lived there, and they were the only cannibals. Right. Joyous, right? Now, the Tonkawas that are alive today, there's about 700 families. In the 1880s, there was about 30 families because the U.S. government gathered them all up and sent them to Oklahoma. Well, they were bitter enemies with the Comanches that were there, and they wiped them out when they got to the reservation. They killed all of them. So they all scattered. They're back on the reservation now, and there's these families, and they're fighting this stigma of them being cannibals. Now, they didn't eat people for fun or for sustenance. The idea was that they killed Comanche warriors, which were big, strong, real warriors, and part of it was the ceremonial eat a piece of them to absorb them. Yeah. Well, that park right next to my house, I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't gone over to Southwestern University and pulled some anthropology thesis from some master's degree and PhD students from the early 1900s.
So there's no plaques anywhere in this park that would indicate that?
No, you wouldn't want to put them. They don't want to put them over there because it is a graveyard also. Where I go, I can walk within 100 yards of my house, and there's a little stream where they have redirected the water, and it has cut down into the ground, and there are pieces of pottery and all kinds of stuff all along this creek bed. This was an area where they buried people. And so they don't want, the Park Service knows it's there, and they go and whenever it gets washed out, they go and dump more dirt there. And it would be crazy. So that is my
And have you
walk to
investigated
thing.
it?
Yeah, I have researched it. I haven't really gotten down
So
in
you've
there
not
and
sat
done
there in the middle of
anything.
the night
No.
to see if you see anything.
No, and right there, the Spanish in the 1700s, the San Gabriel River was called the San Xavier River. And there were 3 Spanish missions settled on there, doing mission work to the Indians, the Lipan Apache, the Tonkawas, and the Caddos. And it turned into a complete train wreck because they were having the priests were having a little bit of problems, so they asked for some soldiers to come up for a little security. The soldiers that came from San Antonio, so it was a town that had Guy Town, had a red light district. They take the soldiers away from the red light district and they take them up to the middle of nowhere to work with a bunch of priests. The soldiers were not happy, so they start, looking for the Indian women. The Indian men didn't like that. It was a big bad thing. And the captain of the Presidio, the captain of the soldiers there, went in and killed one of the priests in the mission, and killed another missionary. And so there's this great history for a haunting right there, but there is the question also, does a haunting happen when we're not there? Do these things happen, or does it take the human being there to see what's going on?
The fact that nobody knows that this happened there, and you've got all these families having picnics and everything, and nobody's reported anything unusual happening is interesting, isn't it? Is the park closed at night?
Yes.
Right. That's it's a lot of hauntings. They don't happen at night necessarily more, but we don't know, do we? But people tend to investigate at night, don't they? So
yes.
It'd be an interesting. I'd have to go and break in the middle of the night, I think, and sit there and just see if I see anything.
Well, yeah. So this is an open park. You can go in there. If the police come through, they'll tell you have to leave the park.
Okay.
So it's not fenced off. It's completely open.
Okay.
But so that's.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for talking to us. Where can our listeners get your books and read more and hear more about everything you've been talking about this weekend?
They can go to my website. It's www.theparanormaldetective.com or www.authorgreglawson.com.
Thank you, Greg. We would really like to interview you again.
Okay,
and
anytime.
We'll perhaps do the Roswell interview that we promised you.
Okay,
that'd
be great.
Fantastic. So we'll catch up with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Enjoy the rest of the weekend.
meeting you in person.
Yeah, it's great to meet people in person. Yeah. Skype never quite comes in, does it?
Thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
Sure.
Thank you, Greg. That was a fantastic interview.
Yeah, what a brilliant guy.
And I tell you what we did. We went on, we asked him a little extra. We set him a little challenge, didn't we, Lindsay?
Oh, we did, yes.
We did. Do you want to hear the challenge that we set, Greg?
Yeah.
Right, here it comes.
We would like you to pronounce these 3 Welsh place names and see if you can get them correctly.
Swansea,
Yes, fantastic.
Rhoda, Rhonda,
Yeah, well done.
Myrta Tideville,
Not quite.
Merthyr Tideville,
Nearly. You've got the first half right.
There. Tideful?
Merthyr Tydfil.
Tidfil.
So that's Merthyr Tydfil. Rhondda. Double D is pronounced.
Rhondda.
And Swansea. Well, see, Mr. Tim Dennis thinks that says Swansea, and that's Rhondda. So we did have we had a little joke with the guys at Darkness, and then I went and pronounced Illinois, Illionis on my podcast, and Dave was straight on it. I slaughtered it. So
that's beautiful.
He was a proper sport, wasn't he? He got those words really, really well, actually.
Yeah.
So fair play. Thank you for playing
Greg.
along with that, Greg. Really, really was fun. And he always has the best shirts on, doesn't he?
He does.
I love Greg's shirts.
Yeah.
He has the most fantastic original shirts. I think he should start his own clothing line. Do you?
Do you know what? He really should, because he has got some other hidden talents, like his donut photography. We haven't heard about that before until this weekend.
I didn't realise Greg took photographs of donuts. Wild donuts.
Yeah.
These are donuts that are sugary donuts in all pretty beautiful colours that have been placed in nature with flowers and things.
Yeah.
And he does the most amazing photography with them, and you admired them because not many people know that you actually like to photograph things out in the nature as well.
I do, yeah.
So you have got a bit of an eye for these things. And he signed one of his photographs and donated it to you, didn't he?
He did. I'm really touched.
That's going to be pride of place somewhere in your house.
Yeah.
So thank you, Greg. That was great. So last but by no means least, we got to chat to Robert Murch, the amazing guy he is, the world's leading Ouija specialist.
Yes.
Now,
what a lovely guy.
Oh, he is. We keep saying that everybody's lovely, but they genuinely were. You know, we're not just blowing smoke up everybody's bum. Honestly, everybody was just so lovely. And especially Robert, he is the world's foremost collector and a historian and an expert on Ouija and talking boards. And he is, I didn't actually realise this until we met him. He's the chairman of the board for the Talking Board Historical Society, which he founded. So these boards, he said he literally had thousands of them, and he's turned his own home into a museum.
Yeah.
Which I would really love to be able to visit one day.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can not imagine that there's one board in existence that Robert doesn't own a version of somewhere.
Yeah, or he'll know about it. He'll know a bit of information about that board.
Yes.
I mean, he again, like all the guest speakers at the Paracon, he's really passionate about his subject, and that really comes across as they talk. And the amount of research that has gone into this. It's not just about collecting. It's about putting places on the map and getting people recognised. And it's about marking history.
That's right. And we got to investigate with Robert Murch in the bedroom of the castle that Aleister Crowley is said to have brought back from the dead a little girl in that room. Yes. And he also used to practice his dark magic in that room. So we used not just any old Ouija board though.
No.
We used the Ouija board that was used in an episode of Ghost Adventures that Zozo came through on. They connected with him on that episode of Ghost Adventures. So, wow, that was amazing. Thankfully, the letter Z didn't get touched at all, did it, during our session?
Not that I remember, no.
No, it didn't. It didn't, thank goodness. But I tell you what was weird, though, when we were doing that Ouija board session, the alarms went off.
They did.
Now, these security alarms went off. If you've ever been into Warwick Castle, you might know there's a huge room full of armour.
Yeah,
suits
there's
of
a
armour.
great hall, isn't there?
Yes.
And there's, like, horseback knights aren't there?
Yes,
Like
there's
statues.
armour everywhere and it's all on display. We did not have access to that room, but we could see it from a gallery landing above.
A motion sensor near one of the horses had been triggered.
That's right. And MJ went with one of the security guards to check the cameras, because I think at first they assumed it was one of us, and they checked the security cameras and they were baffled as to why this motion sensor would go off on its own. So, interesting. So let's listen to Robert Murch and what he had to say. And I have to say again, audio. We've done our absolute best with this audio file, but just as we'd started to interview Robert, there was a break and everybody kind of poured into the room. So there was chairs scraping and people laughing, but bear with us and listen to what Robert had to say to Dead Creepy Podcast.
Well, Robert, thank you very much for joining us on Dead Creepy Podcast. It's an honour to talk to you, and welcome to SAGE PARACON 2017 as well.
Thank you so much for having me here. This is an incredible opportunity for me and the Talking Board Historical Society that I represent. It's just amazing to be across the pond.
Have you been here before to Warwick Castle?
I've not only never been to Warwick Castle, I've never been across the pond. So this is the first time I've ever been to Europe, period.
Wow, that's so exciting then. So what are your impressions of the UK? And
I think people are so much nicer than we are as Americans. It's awesome. What I see here in the paranormal is it's just starting to really take off here. And in America, it's been, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 years, it's been cooking and growing and growing and growing. And so I feel like even though every year I think we've peaked, it just keeps getting bigger. But here, you guys are just taking off, and I see it building. And it's cool to, again, be here and be part of that influence. Americans don't always have the greatest influence on things, but in the paranormal world, I think we do a fairly good job.
Absolutely. Well, we have posted on our Facebook page this morning a couple of, said that we would be talking to you, and we've asked our listeners if they have any questions that they would like us to put to you, because this is a very short interview before your talk. So we have got a couple of questions, haven't we?
Excellent.
Right.
Linzi's got them.
The first question is from Kathy Denver. Do you believe truly that these boards are neither negative or positive? And how many do you own, and what was your most expensive?
There you got three questions there.
She really got it in there. That's great.
Did.
The first thing is, I don't think Ouija boards or talking boards, the general term for these boards, are anything negative or positive. It's really what you make of them. It's like asking if your iPhone is good or bad. You can have great conversations on them, or you can have terrible conversations on them. And I think what people forget is there's a little hang-up button at the bottom of those boards. It says goodbye. It's built into them. So if something's happening when you're using them that you don't like, or that makes you feel uncomfortable, you just say goodbye. And maybe you need to take a break. Maybe you just need to, But I tell people a couple of things. It's what you bring to the board. So it's your intentions. If you have a bad day, we've seen it, like anger and bad moods, they're very catchy, right? It's very like, someone's in a bad mood and they elbow you and you're like, oh, excuse me, and they say, oh, excuse me. And then you're kind of mad, and then you kind of bite someone else's head off. If you're in that place, it's not a great idea to use these, because you're putting yourself in a place to open up something, whether that's you talking to your subconscious, whether it's you talking to something else, or whether there's some psychic thing. It's just not going to be it's like anything else, you don't call your mom on the phone when you have little patients, right? Because you're just going to snap her. And that's really what happens with these boards. So I don't think they're good or bad. I think they're just a tool like everything else. Hollywood, and since I work on a lot of these movies and TV shows, I might be partly to blame for this, but I think that influence, when people see it, creeps into their head. And because belief is 9/10 of your reality, what you believe is true. It doesn't matter if it really is true. If you believe it's true, if you believe these boards are bad, you will have a bad experience. It's just the way it works. If you can set that stuff aside and open up your mind and say, okay, I'm going to use this just like I would a K2 meter or an EVP recorder. then you're okay. But if you can't, if you look at it and say, oh, every bad movie, every story, everything I've ever heard, they're bad, don't. Sit back and watch until you're comfortable where you feel in control. Because what's different about the Ouija board than any other spirit communication device is that we give it power. So if we're on the phone, or we're doing this interview and say it went terrible, not that it would, but say it went terrible, and you called me names, I called you names, we say terrible things to each other, you don't take your phone and throw it out the window and say, I'll never have another one of these in my house again. But when you do this with a Ouija board, you do. So the board has power, you give it power. And because you touch it, and because you hear it, and because you see it, you are an integral part of the communication. Unlike, an EVP recorder, you can set it down. You don't have to touch it. You can just ask questions. But with a board, it doesn't work unless you're touching it. And then you hear it and you see it. So you're really part of that communication, and that makes it special. And so I think you have to be more careful and more cognizant about what you're doing. Because if you got a bad EVP, you just go, oh, wow, cool. Like if it swears at you or says something terrible, it's neat. But it happens on a board, and you're like, whoa, hell no. I'm done. Again, we give the board power. So keep in mind what you give the board and what you think about it. That becomes incredibly important. And then I think she asked, how many do I have?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a scary question. I'm glad my husband's not here. No, he knows very well. We just moved from Boston to Denver. We moved across country, and we had to move all these. I have a few thousand Ouija and talking boards, and some of those are variations. And they've been so popular over the last 150 years that people would make different kind of variations and try to make them work differently. But they're still popular today because of that very interesting experience of touching the planchette and asking a question and having it move. You are really part of the experience. People pay so much money to come to these events and have an experience. I want someone to touch me. I want to hear something. I want to feel something. The Ouija board gives you all of those things, and yet when you ask if you want to play, people are like, no way. They'll get the exact experience they want. Again, just being aware of you're in control. If you give up your control, as it would in any part of your life, you become the back seat, and that's not the way it should be. So I have lots of them, and she didn't ask this, but people always say, did anything bad happen in your house? Because my house is a museum to the Ouija board, all kinds of things everywhere. And I always tell people, the scariest things in my house are the things, the people who live in it, not the stuff on the walls. So that stuff is just stuff, because I don't give it any power. I see it as a historical reflection of people's comfort level with death. And that's changed over time, right? Because back in the 1800s, where these devices come from, death was so much a part of your life, an overwhelming part of your life. And in America, it comes after the Civil War, where everyone lost a father, a son, a grandfather, a grandson, a nephew. And they just went away. You didn't know what happened to them. So these spirit communication devices, they helped you answer things that nothing else could. And even if you weren't sure if it was true, something is better than nothing. Humans are different animals than any other animal because we have belief. We can decide, I choose to believe this even though I can't prove it. Your dog doesn't have that luxury. It only knows you come home at this time because you come home at this time every day. They see it. We choose to believe. And so belief becomes so incredibly powerful that we don't know what happens when we die. This question has been going on from the beginning of time, and we still haven't answered it. We have beliefs, we have theories, but we're not sure. And so the Ouija board allows you to explore that question in a fun way. So you could ask, is what's after death? What's it like where you are? Or you could ask, does Bobby like me? And that's the difference. And it's also one of the reasons why the Ouija board took off in America, because Americans tend to laugh at things that make them uncomfortable. We make jokes about everything that's scary. That's how we handle it. But in other cultures, playing with the dead is not acceptable. You do commune with the dead, you talk to them when it's serious, but the Ouija board, because it's always been marketed as a game, that throws some places, including the United Kingdom, into a bit of a uncomfortable relationship with a Ouija board. Whereas in America, it's like, again, will I kiss Bobby? Does Bobby like me? That's okay. And then I think the last question was, and I'm very glad my husband's not here for this, what's the most I ever paid? So in American money, I would say a couple $1,000s.
Right, wow.
When I started collecting 25 years ago, these boards were $5, $10, maybe $15. And if you spent more than that, you were crazy. But now, because we know the historical importance of some of these boards that I've spent so long researching, and along with all of the members of the Talking Board Historical Society, we know that they are important. And unfortunately, I've also been part of, now that we know what they are, prices have gone up. So I kind of shot myself in the foot a bit by informing people.
Is there a board that exists that you would really like to own?
Yeah, there's always, so people ask all the time, what's your favorite board? And I always say the next one. Because each board has a story. Every company that makes it had a different spin on it. I tend to like the original early boards because those boards are where it all starts, where it becomes from. So some of the boards I have are, like one of these boards right here is a board from the UK. The earliest board from London that's come out here, and it actually comes from the woman who named the Ouija board back in America. She, after the board was named and they started marketing it, she got married to someone from London, and she moved over here for a while. And so as I'm here, I also spent time at the British Museum and the British Library trying to figure out what happened in that time. So there's still a bit of a mystery as to how this played out in the UK.
That's interesting. So I have another question. I think you have answered it, but again, it would probably reinforce. You say this question.
This question's from Catherine too. I have always been worried about Ouija boards, as I have thought they could be potentially a conduit for unpleasant dark energy balls. Would be very interested to know what Robert thought about this.
And I think that's possible. If that's what you're looking for, or if that's where you're at, your mental state. So to me, Ouija boards are mirrors. They reflect what you bring to them. So if you're in a great place and you're really trying to do something interesting, or even have a good time and be fun, if you ask questions you don't want answers to, they will disturb you. For instance, I had this story, we were at a convention, and this bunch of young girls came up very scared. And you know the difference between drama and real fear. Well, they were really afraid. And their questions were, the Ouija board told us something terrible, I'm really scared, what do we do? Okay, wait, take a deep breath. What did it tell you? The Ouija board told us how and when we were going to die. And I said, well, that's a pretty specific thing. What did you ask the Ouija board when it told you this? Well, we asked when and how we were going to die. and I laughed, not at them, but again, think about the things you want to ask. And so my joke always is, ask for the lottery numbers. I mean, if you're going to get something that's truthful and real, be a billionaire. Like asking how and when you're going to die, you have to assume that what you're talking to knows more than you. And I don't know if that's been proven. If you believe in ghosts, do you believe they know everything? I don't know if I believe that, because I don't know if I've actually had a ghost experience. I don't know if it's your brain that's causing these things, that our minds are so powerful that our belief in a ghost can actually create something physical in this world, that your thoughts have power. Or is it really a ghost? I want to believe that when I die, I move on to whatever the next thing is. And I'm not waiting for someone to pick up a Ouija board and talk to me. But at the same time, people use Ouija boards as they use all of this equipment, because a couple of things happen. One, what's going to happen to me, right? Like, am I going to be okay? Second, what happens to people I love? And the other things are grief and guilt. What if the last thing I said to you was something horrible? So I was just in a really bad mood, and you walk out and got hit by a car. I have to live the rest of my life now, and the last thing I said to you was something terrible. What if I had the chance to say I'm sorry? What if that existed? And that's why the Ouija board is so important, because even if it's not talking to who you wanted to, you get to get that off your chest. You get to tell someone, I didn't mean that. And I'm really sorry that I was in such a terrible mood that I didn't think, what if this was the last time I saw you? And so the Ouija board really does give you something, if you look at it in the right way, that very few things can. And that's comfort, right? Death is hard. Humans don't like finality. No one wants the end. We don't want anything to end. Friendships, marriage, love. I don't want my parents to pass away. I don't want the way life works. But what if I had a chance to just make myself feel better, or someone else? And so that's why people go to psychics or mediums or anything that allows them to take this weight off their shoulders. And again, as long as you look at Ouija boards that way, you won't get these dark, awful entities. If you do, you just say goodbye and shut the door. The Ouija board only opens a portal inside of you. People forget that it's you and something else that's a combination, that's having this conversation, right? It's you and your subconscious, you and maybe something else, you and some form of psychic telepathy. The board is just the portal, like as the telephone, as long as that's the only power you give it. If you give it more than that, it will become more than that. So just keeping it, hey, this is just what I'm using, and I don't like that, I'm done, okay, that's the worst you have.
Absolutely, that's fascinating.
I have another question. You've obviously witnessed a lot of very renowned investigators using the board. Does anyone push it?
So it's always pushed, because in the movies, the planchette moves by itself. In the real world, you have to touch it. If you take your fingers off it, it doesn't work. There are people who claim that it has worked on its own. I've never seen it. And the videos that they show, it can be very clear that something else is going on. And so you have to move it. And the idea behind it is that the spirits or something is guiding your hands. So you're always pushing it. So have I ever played it with friends who are just pushing it for it to be funny? Of course, we all have, especially when I was younger. The first experience I ever had was with my stepsisters, and they were significantly older than me. I didn't want this little kid running around playing with them, so they would use the Ouija board to scare the crap out of me and make me go to bed, and it worked completely. So yeah, they pushed it. So you can do it, but most of the time, even if it's your subconscious, even if it's you pushing it, you don't know it, they don't know. I can tell sometimes who is leading the session, who is it really doing it. But I also know they don't know that this is happening, that they don't feel it. They feel it's moving, and that's the beauty of the Ouija board, because it's very unbeknownst to you.
Yes.
You're part of this.
Fantastic. Well, we can't wait to hear your talk.
Yeah.
And we don't want to ruin it. We want people to come back to SAGE Paracon again, because I really hope you come back next year. And we want people to book to come and see you and come and hear you. But we'd love to talk to you again.
Of course, anytime. And for people who are interested, you can look up the Talking Board Historical Society or on Facebook. If you're interested in what I'm doing personally, it's robertmurch.com, also on Facebook. But the Talking Board Historical Society is really fun because I am just one of many very interesting people. I might be the most boring of all the people in them. We're very creative artists who all have different takes on this. So what we do is on Facebook, every week we have different members or directors posting their views or things. So you really get a chance to talk to all of us. And so you don't, even though we're in the States, you don't have to be, because we'll always answer.
Well, we will put the links to that on our Facebook page as well.
Awesome.
So
thank you so much.
We'll make sure that happens. Thank you very much for talking to us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure.
It's an honor to be here.
Thank you very much.
So that was our little chat with Robert Murch. Robert, thank you very much for talking to us. It's an absolute pleasure. And, I was surprised that both Robert and John had not been... Robert's never been across the pond before. This was his first visit ever to the UK.
Yeah.
And John's office hasn't been over here for 30 years. So we would not have had that opportunity, certainly ever before. And I really hope that they come over for next year's SAGE Paracon, which has already started being planned.
Tickets are on sale already, so...
They absolutely are. If you like what you've heard on today's podcast, then get over to www.sageparacon.co.uk and have a look on there at Sage Paracon 2018 at the top of the page. And if you click on that, it does say Warwick Castle. At the time of recording, that is still pending. However, the date of that is 9th to the 11th of November. Head on over to Sage Paracon and get your tickets, because this is one weekend you are not going to want to miss. And I'm pretty sure we're going to be there too, aren't we, Lindsay?
Absolutely.
So try stopping us. We will be there. So thank you for listening to us. Thank you for everybody who has joined us for perhaps the first time of listening to Dead Creepy Podcast. If we met you at Paracon, hello, a big hello from Claire and Lindsay.
Hello.
And come and add us on Facebook, please. We want to see more of your pictures and chat to you more. Goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.
Thank you for
Bye. That hurts, actually. Hurts my throat.